We're here with Martin and Ragnar, and we're going to talk a little bit about the player versus player combat in the secret world that we finally get to see a little bit about today. So, could you first of all just give us a brief description of the sort of how the player versus player fits into the world?
Sure, I can take this one. In the secret world, players join one of three secret societies, the Illuminati, the Dragon, or the Templars, and they battle for world dominations in locations spread all over the world. Stonehenge, Shambhala, and El Dorado, three locations we're revealing today. And in these locations, the secret societies are fighting to control relics that contain great magic, and whoever controls that relic gets the power of this magic. Now, these PvP battles are ruled over something called the Council of Venice, to sort of set the ground rules, to set the PvP mechanics in a way, and decide how the factions have to fight in order to sort of win over these relics.
And that's a really interesting part, because that means we get different sort of game modes in the PvP.
Yeah, today we introduced three of them. The first one is the battle for Stonehenge, where each of the secret society has sent one team to fight for the control of Stonehenge. This game mode is sort of like domination, king of the hill kind of fight, where you get points for controlling Stonehenge, the secret society that has the most players in the inner ring of Stonehenge. But you also get points for knocking other players out. So it's all about sort of relentlessly attacking the middle of Stonehenge, or sort of digging in and holding and controlling the center. The other one that we showed today was the battle for Shambhala, which is an ancient city in Himalayas. And this is our arena game, our ranked arena matches. So people go in there with pre-made teams fighting against other teams with a similar rating stem, and it's a sort of it's a death match, last man standing kind of thing. And the last one we shown today was El Dorado, which is the biggest game right now. 10 players from each faction, 30 in total, fighting to control these ancient magic idols. And what's cool about this is it's sort of a capture the flag, but with a twist. You pick up the idols, but you get to choose where you want to defend the idols. And it's not a symmetrical map. It's full of different nooks and crannies, and some places are elevated, some bases are easy to defend, some bases are harder to defend, choke points and all like that. So it's all about sort of matching the place that you want to defend with the build that you have. Because if you're spec'd into defense, for instance, you want to find a choke point and sort of hold that ground and say none shall pass and all that. But if you're spec'd into, let's say, knockbacking, then you would want to find something elevated, and knocking other players down, it's easier for you to defend. So it's a very interesting game mode.
And in terms of the matchmaking and that stuff in the second arena there that you mentioned, will you be able to team up in a team and keep playing like several times and so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's you sign up for a persistent team. Of course, with players from your secret society, you can't mix and match there. But yeah, it's a persistent team with rankings and leaderboards and stuff like that. And of course, most importantly, rewards.
So why did you decide to sort of set the PvP in like separate places like this, rather than having it sort of in the open world where everyone could kill everyone?
Well, and the different reasons for it. First off, it's the secret world. I mean, it spans the globe. You have all these amazing locations, and the more locations we have, the more the secret world is it. And you'll see some of the stuff we plan for the future too. It's really, really cool. Secondly, I mean, on the mechanics side, I mean, to set these sort of types of games, these types of matches in the open world would of course be very, very difficult. And again, that ties into the story, how these sort of relics, these ancient locations, are sources of great power, and the Council of Venice, like I said, have sort of set the ground rules for how to fight in these particular areas. Civilians are kept out. It's all covered up by the governments. Only the secret societies are allowed in, or only a certain number of them are allowed in order to sort of control the battle and set the rules of engagement. So it all ties into it. But of course, I mean, mechanically, I mean, it's really important to us to have a contained place where these battles can take place and when the matches can take place, and the scores can be tallied, and to make it a fair fight for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, as Ragnar says, when we have locations like this, it lets us tailor the location to the kind of game mode that we want players to have, and we think we've come up with some really interesting and fun game modes, and it's cool to see players in the office trying out the different ones, and you see all the people's true colors come out, and with the crying and the tears and the hurting, and it's like it's cool.
And perhaps it's also a good place to sort of mix and match with your decks and with other players and try to find good combinations.
Definitely. I mean, our game is perfect for PvP in that sense. Since you can play however you want to play, you can be a pure tank builder, you can be a pure healer, but you can also be a hybrid. And it's also like we've implemented the state system that we talked a little bit about before, which is basically a way that powers can communicate and sort of creating a synergy. So it's not only important that you have a build that has synergy, but you want to have synergy with your teammates, and teams that really spend time and effort into coming up with good group builds can just dominate completely. So it's really a lot of fun in that sense. And I mean, for players that, for instance, like Magic the Gathering, a lot of the fun in Magic the Gathering is the deck building, and we want to create that same sort of feeling in the Secret World, that deck building matters.
So, but I guess the reverse is also true. When you get beaten really badly, you will want to explore exactly why you were beaten, and it's not just because someone has 5 levels more than you.
Exactly, and that's really a good point, because we don't want the feeling of players sitting like, okay, I just died and I had no idea why. So we're very careful about implementing tools for the player to understand why did I just die now, and we want players to learn from it, and it's really important that we communicate what just exactly happened to you, so that they are able to say, okay, so they did that, well, I know how to counter that. Oh shit, maybe I don't have those skills, I need to go out and play, purchase the skills, now I have the skills, now I can counter those. So that whole dynamic is really interesting, and of course you always end up with like flavor of the month builds, but then clever people will then come up with a counter to flavor of the month, but then even more clever people will come up with counter to the counter of flavor of the month. So that whole dynamic is really interesting in an open game like this.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.